Yeah, since I came back to the UK, I became more punctual, you see? Yeah, I never was like this before. I mean, not to the extreme, but yeah. Once in the Netherlands, when I went back to see my own teacher, my first teacher, you know, who was in the Netherlands now for 2.5 decades, I think. So when I went back, he's a Tibetan master. So when I came back somewhere after a few years, then I led him to the teachings. I was assisting Geshe-la. And then he asked me, oh, what's the time? Do we still have time before the session starts? I said, yeah. There is time. And then Geshe-la said, you too long in India, here we in the West. We follow the, the strict time, kind of punctual. You can see everywhere, and train is 1 minute late, straight away people apologize. I mean, except Sundays, I've learned in the UK. Sundays is the exception for the trains, not to have to apologize when the train is 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour, happened to me once. Or the train didn't go anymore even, yeah. There's also dependent course and conditions. Yeah, everybody's back, still a few people waiting to be behind the screen. Yeah, so just to summarize, before we summarize, try to set the motivation. That's very important, because we saw that number 2, A, B, and C, then the mental aspects of our acts are extremely important. So that's why whatever we do, we try to have the correct motivation. It's for positive acts to make it more complete. So make sure before we start, we have the correct motivation to study this and to put it into practice and to get the benefits out of it for self and others. So that's, we should know correctly. Yeah. All right. So then this morning, before the break, we talked about a few things, right? We talked about for the most important points of karma to reflect upon or to meditate upon. Yeah? So that means that karma is definite. It's not like everything is random, It's kind of positive things produce positive results, negative things produce negative results. That's the first line, right? Karma is definite. Yeah? So we have to contemplate in that way. We will do meditation today as well, but then you know why we explain it in this way and why we meditate it and what kind of results should that be producing. Yeah, as I said before, it's very important. Why do we study things? Why do we meditate on things? And what kind of results does it produce? Yeah, that's important to know. So that means that if you really want to achieve happiness in life and progress on the spiritual path, you have to make sure you create the right conditions, right? So that means you have to understand this law of cause and effect and act accordingly. So that's why we study it, and that's why we contemplate. So that's why we have to know that karma is definite from the point of view of, one particular cause creates a particular result. Yeah. So same with the seeds of an apple will never produce a banana tree, right? Yeah. So a similar way, and particular action will produce a result in accordance with the cause. And as often we say in Buddhism, or in this within the context of karma, the result is in accordance with the cause, right? So sometimes there's an experience with regard to the cause. Sometimes there's an act by the power of habituation. People engage in the same thing again, right? That's very, we can see, people with a particular habituation in life that propels similar acts in a kind of subsequent way over the years, right? And that process of this habituation can change. Yeah, so I often use the example of inmates in prisons, who committed crimes. If they are in a prison that helps them to train the mind, or at least do something more social with them, that they think about others more than themselves, then there's a possibility of change. Yeah, this northern prison in Norway, for example, they produce incredible results of only 20% falls back to old habits, right? It's very interesting because there's a possibility to change. right? Well, in prisons in the UK and in the US, for example, there's more or less still a kind of lockdown or lock-up kind of system without working with their minds, and then 50 till, you know, what is it, 60, 70% in the UK falls back to old habits, and in the US is even a higher level, right? So that means if these habituation patterns are not stopped, then the same problem will come up again and again and again, right? So that means that karma is definite in this regard. If you don't change it, it will propel the same thing. So we can think in that way that, oh, now it's time to do something, right? Yeah. And also the next one, the power of increase. Yeah, because the stronger the habits come, they will propel similar acts in the future, similar experiences in the future, in accordance with the cause. Yeah, nothing is random. Yeah, so that means, and yeah, we talked about death and rebirth last time, remember? Yeah, those who were there. So then also I explained the example of children remember previous lifetimes and Ian Stevenson's research. Even there, some of the case studies, very interesting. About this case in Burma, really very interesting that habituation patterns of the previous personality carry on in the present life. Very interesting. You know, this aversion to the soldiers who are killing the person, and then attachment and desire to the, you know, the female of the previous personality meet again in this life, and again they got married. Very interesting. Yeah. So as you can see, habituations carry on, not only in this life, but in subsequent lifetimes. So that means this power of increase also is very important to know. So when we do something virtuous, something positive, we try to act to enhance that increase by the power of rejoicing, to feel good about something. So rejoicing is an incredible practice. You can just, if I see you sitting in your room with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, whatever you're drinking, that I cannot see. I can only see the cup. But if you just relax, a cup of tea, coffee, maybe biscuit. I didn't see biscuits today, but you know. So then you can just sit and rejoice. Yeah, anyway. So that means you can just sit and rejoice in somebody's good deed. Or if you watch the news and there's somebody who acts like this BBC reporter who gives his own shoes away, you think, oh wow, that's amazing, that's very nice. You know, then it generates positive states of mind, right? So then it increases this kind of what already karma has the power to increase, but then you make it even stronger. Yeah, if you did something good in your life, then you think about positive about that good thing. Yeah, you rejoicing is to feel happy about something positive in the context of virtue, this which produces happiness. So if you happy also when somebody else does something good, right? It's much better. You know, if you're, for example, jealous at a person, right? Jealousy, you know, you only have yourself. You know, if you're jealous at another person, that person doesn't even know you're jealous at that person. So you only think, why this person? This, why? So you only actually have yourself. That person doesn't even know you're thinking that way. Just moves on with life, you know. So jealousy actually only you have yourself. Yeah? Well, if you rejoice, if somebody else does something good, you say, oh, that's nice. Automatically, there's so much more benefit for your own mind, right? And on top of that, you also accumulate something positive, right? So that's why to rejoice in somebody else's good deeds, same thing, you know, in the news. If people rejoice about the good things in the news, it brings a kind of incredible energy, you know. So that's why rejoicing is being considered. Lama Tsongkhapa said, rejoicing is the easiest way to accumulate merit and without effort, because you can sit with a cup of coffee and you can just think, oh wow, that's nice. You know what people do, you know, and that makes the mind extremely positive, right? Yeah, so that's a very good way to accumulate merit, to rejoice. Yeah, and that helps also to, it's not exactly the same as increase, but to make this power of increase, right, the second point of karma, of positive things we do, to let it increase even more, yeah, because a seed can produce a tree, which a lot of fruit, right? So in a similar way, just one thought can produce so much. There's many stories. King Ashoka, you know, who was this kind of incredible king in India, who did so much good for you know, many things, and able to build monasteries, stupas, everything. He was so rich, so wealthy. So then was asked, you know, how is that possible? But then there's a relation of a story. It is a very textual, it's a very traditional story, but at least you can relate to that. So then at the time of the Buddha, when he was a young child, and he saw the Buddha as very superior, kind of amazing, eliminating the suffering of sentient beings. He generated so much faith to the Buddha, but he was so poor. He didn't have anything to give, you know. So then he had just sand, you know, just some sand, and visualized it was gold, and then offered to the Buddha. You know, by the power of that act, actually, and rejoicing in that act, then he became this very wealthy king. You know? So karma is kind of a small act can produce incredible results. Yeah, that's true for positive karma, that's true for negative karma. But then some people will ask me, yes, but some people, they always nasty and they kill and do this, but then they're very successful, they say. Some people say that. Yeah, but on the long term is the question. Then one day they get caught, and then, you know, same thing. Every criminal, every person who steals something, in the back of the mind is always this uncomfortable feeling. What if they get me? You know, it's no cause for happiness, so to say, right? So that means that karma is very complex. When the result ripens, that depends on many causes and conditions, as we saw, right? So it's not that fixed. You know, if you're a criminal, you will experience all the result in this life. It's not like that. You know, you can also experience it in future lifetimes. Yeah? And it's also good for our good deeds we do. Some people, they're into Buddhism for many years, and they say, oh, the mind is still not changed, or the mind changed sometime, and then old bad habits came back again, you know, and they want to give up. Some people like that, and that's, but one lifetime is peanuts compared to you know, beginningless lifetime. So you can imagine to train the mind is not going to happen from one day to the other, right? Or you finish Discovering Buddhism course and we give you a certificate and you think, oh, wow, now I've changed my mind. That's done. It's not, the paper is not a proof. You know? So the real proof is to check if your mind is changed or not. Same for us in the monastery, you know. We're not discovering Buddhism, and now we start with the basic program, which is 5 years. 5 years. So some people think, what? 5 years of study? That's long. Can I do that? It's kind of peanuts. If you think beginner's lifetime, then 1, 2, 3, 5 years is nothing, you know. So then you think a bit the big picture, you know. Before we talked about the Kadampa advice, I don't know. I do so many talks that I sometimes forget where did I talk about it. But I think also Discovering Buddhism, you know, the kind of fast vision, making plans, relax, don't squeeze yourself. Did I do that in Discovering Buddhism? I think so, yeah? Okay. Yeah, yeah, somebody, yeah. But it's very important to make plans. So anyway, so this power of increase is very essential to understand, because from the positive things, it has incredible potential, but from the negative things, it's kind of, oh, I have to purify, you know? So it gives us a kind of motivator to purify things. How to purify, we do later, yeah? So this is the first karma first the summary. Karma is definite, right? Then the power of increase, right? Then you won't experience the result you haven't created yourself, right? Was number 3. Or somebody else will not experience the result of karma you've created, which proves that we have individual streams of consciousness, though we have common aspects of the mind, right? Yeah, we have similar afflictions, we have similar constructive way of thinking, yeah, even animals. That's why people say, oh, but a dog, you check, you know, or a cat. Some people have a cat at home, I saw. Yeah, so you check, you know, but you also have a cat here, Dorje. Maybe last weekend during the emptiness teachings, then also Dorje was on the other side of the door, but people could hear on the other side of the screen. Yeah, so you check the animals. they have similar kind of afflictions. You know, I learned so much watching the stray dogs in India, the dogs who live on the street without owners. It's very interesting. Afflictions, very interesting. You know, when there's a female dog, then a male dog comes, you know, and what happens? Attachment comes, things happen. Yeah. Then when there's another dog who comes into territory of this group of dogs, barking, fighting, my place, you're not allowed here. You know, it's very similar. You know, then from the other point of view, sometimes happens a new dog comes in and the group of the dogs start barking, and the new dog is kind of a playful one, easygoing kind of guy or lady or whatsoever, comes in and then wakes it still. Hi. And then all the dogs who start barking, they look at the dog. What? We don't expect this reaction. And then they start to sniff him, you know, or her. It's very interesting. So you can see the human same thing. When people get very annoyed and start shouting, and you come in and you calm and just, then there's an effect on the whole atmosphere, right? So that means that these states of mind is very similar. Consciousness, right? So we have individual streams of consciousness, but you have similar. That's why the Buddha said, all living beings want happiness and do not suffering. And that's why when we generate compassion, we generate compassion for all sentient beings without exception. Why without exception? Because all sentient beings are exactly the same. Wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, you know? So understanding that aspect is a very interesting point to see that we all have consciousnesses, though individual streams, but we have similar aims in life. Wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. And we have similar states of afflictions. You know, the anger that produces suffering in somebody else's mind and the anger that produces suffering in your mind, the function and the nature, you know, of anger is the same, the definition, but only the way it reacts with different circumstances, of course, that depends on a lot of causes and conditions, right? But its definition, its nature, its function, you know, it's been defined in a particular way, is similar. So that means we have individual consciousnesses, but we have things in common, yeah, because our consciousnesses are all the same. The ultimate nature of consciousness is the same of all of us. We all have Buddha potential, we all can develop to achieve the state of enlightenment. Yeah, so that aspect is there as well. Even a mosquito, you know, a mosquito or fly, have the same thing. They want happiness, don't want suffering, you know, and they have Buddha potential. You know, so that's why the Buddha said, you know, that the act of killing is not be considered as a virtuous deed, as non-virtue. You know? Yeah. So when His Holiness, many years ago, His Holiness talked a lot about the universal aspect of Buddhism. His Holiness said, not a division than what he says these days, but he says we have two aspects of Buddhism, which is kind of behavior and the view. Behavior is ahimsa in India, right? The non-harmfulness, not to harm others. And so if you can benefit others, at least try not to harm them. That's the behavior of ahimsa, right? And there's the view. What is the view? The view of interdependence. So His Holiness says, if you combine those two together, you will see that if you harm another person by either saying something negative or nasty to that person, how would you feel if somebody else does this to you? That's the view of interdependence. Based on that view, you understand that's not nice if a person does this to me, so I shouldn't do that to that other person. You see? Okay? Very interesting. So there's behavior and the view. So then, based on this view, we practice morality. Because if somebody else harms us, we won't like that. So that's why we don't harm somebody else. You know? And that's a view what we call based on, you know, in terms of psychology, self-awareness, self-discipline, empathy, and compassion. It's a very similar structure. They go into, you know, like a criminal basically is lacking this understanding of self-awareness, you know, is lacking this kind of emotional intelligence, is in an emotional hijack and acts and that causes a problem, you know. So that's why the Buddha said, you know, if you understand that aspect of law of cause and effect, and that's why you practice morality, because you don't like to be harmed yourself. So that's, and based on that, this whole aspect of karma came around the corner. Yeah, so the first point we discussed is karma is definite, right? The second one, the increase. And then the third one is that we just discussed, whatever is being caused by you, you will have to take responsibility for that. You know, either positive or negative, yeah, it comes to reasoning, to result in the future. You cannot experience something is done by somebody else. So you cannot say, hey, my dear friend, I'm very busy and I've created so much negative karma. Please purify for me. Yeah. It doesn't go like that. Same true. You cannot say to the person next to you, hey, you practice patience, okay? And you don't get the results from that, no? It would be easy if you put a chip. You do it somebody else practice and take the chip out, put it in your own. But it's not like that. So that means that we have to do things ourselves, right? The Buddha said also, you know, I cannot take away your suffering. I cannot wash away all your negative deeds. I cannot give my realizations to you, but I can show you how to do it. You see? So that means that we have individual streams of consciousness. Yeah? That is number 3. Yeah? And then the results will not come about until, or the karma will not be exhausted, we say technically, until the result has been experienced, or the karma has been destroyed, right? So with purification, we can purify negative karma, yeah, as we talked about before, and we're going to talk about a little bit more, maybe tomorrow. And also, negative states of mind, like anger, can also destroy positive potentials, right? Yeah, so we know that if we wake up with or we set our motivation in the morning, in the meditation, and set a good motivation, and then we get angry, and then the whole positive attitude goes down the drain, right? Yeah, so means that anger destroys. So that's why there's a lot of emphasis on practicing patience, right? If you study the 6 perfections of the bodhisattvas, you know, then practicing patience is so important. Why? Because we try to engage in something positive again and again, and we rejoice in that, so that accumulates. And it's not easy to do positive things, you know. We know our mind is just filled with all kinds of thoughts, and so it's not always easy. So we put a lot of effort in thinking positive, and then just 1 second of anger can destroy so much. You know? Yeah, so that means not getting angry, practicing patience, and then on the same time, you develop yourself, you go up the ladder, right? Yeah. So that's the 4 points we discussed, right? Karma is kind of definite, karma increase. Yeah, you won't experience the results if the karma is not created by yourself. And then the 4th point is kasa, that the result will come, you know. So the karma is not exhausted until the result comes about, or it gets destroyed. Yeah? Positive karma by an affliction like anger, and negative karma by purification. Yeah, so there's the 4 points we discovered. Yeah, covered, I said, but then this came before covered and became discovered. Discovering Buddhism, we discovered the 4 points. So then after that we went into what did we do after that? Oh yeah, we went into the 10 non-virtues, right? Yeah, so the 10 non-virtues, and then we went into to make a karmic action complete. There we left. Yeah, so that means to make an action complete, we have 4 factors, right? So there was the basis, intention, deed, and final step. Remember? And then intention was subdivided into 2A, B, and C, meaning motivation, discrimination, and affliction. Right? Yeah, okay, good. So then I will give you an example to relate those 4, you know, or 6 points, yeah, if you subdivide the second one, to an act, like say the act of killing, right? Let's take the act of killing a human being. Let's say killing Peter, you know? So the object here is Peter, human being, right? Then among the intention, the motivation is the wish to kill. If there's no wish to kill, then you won't engage in the act, right? Then the discriminating factor is it's Peter and not John, right? So if it's dark and you kill John instead of Peter, it's not the act of killing Peter, right? Yeah, it's still negative, but this factor is mistaken. The discriminating factor is mistaken. You see that? Yeah, that's important to know. Yeah. And then the affliction can be, yeah, you can kill a person out of anger or out of attachment, you know, or like, for example, you touch to one person, this person harms your person you attach to, and you kill that person. That's maybe a combination of anger and attachment. Then you can kill out of ignorance, thinking, oh, it doesn't matter if I take the life of another person. Or, you know, some people do animal sacrifice and things. You know, it's good to kill animals and to offer the blood of the animal to a spirit or something like that. You know, it's also killing out of ignorance. Or people think killing animals doesn't matter because animals are here for us and they don't have feeling. Some people think like that and they kill. Sometimes when I was watching the news to the pandemic, it's like, you know, every day in the US, every day a few hundred people died from the coronavirus. Then there was the news of these meat factories, and they were closed down because there was a spread of the virus among the people. And there was one factory, I couldn't believe, it was like 9 on full capacity. It kills 19,500 pigs. And there was 4,000 people walking, like a 5-story building, huge factory. You can imagine, it's kind of, and it was only the 7th biggest one in the US, can you imagine? So then we talk about a lot of killing, a lot of people dying from coronavirus, but 19,500, and it's just only the 7th biggest one, so you can imagine the biggest one will be much more. You know? So yeah, very sad to, anyway, so that's the act of killing. Yeah, so many lose their life. So yeah, it's very sad. So that means that, why did I tell this story? Because, yeah, killing out of ignorance. People don't know, think, yeah, those animals are here for us, so that's why, you know, they have to serve us, kind of, you know, or they don't have feeling. It's out of ignorance, right? And, you know, attachment for the meat. You know, you put like 19,000 animals in, and then on the other side of the factory, all things come out that goes straight to the supermarket. You know? So, yeah, very sad. Anyway, so that's the second point. Yeah, this one. The kasa. The affliction, yeah, the third one of the second point. So then the act you can kill with a weapon or poison, or, you know, you can kill with different means, right? So that's the deed or the act, you know, of killing. Yeah, so that also makes a difference. If you kill in one shot or you kill in a torture, then killing in a torture causes more suffering to the individual, right? Yeah, so that's more heavier karma. So that's the deed. And then the final step or conclusion, what did I say? What did I say? Completion, yeah, sorry. I put the camera a little bit like that to prevent the sun from coming into the camera. Yeah. So the last one is with the act of killing, the other person dies before you die. Then the act is complete. You see? So if all those factors are complete, it's a complete act of killing a human being, in this case, Peter, right? You see that? So if all those factors are complete, it becomes a kind of heavier karma. If you, for example, step on an insect by accident, right? Then first of all, the basis is there. The first one is there, right? The insect is there. But then in the second group, there's no motivation to kill, right? There's no discrimination, right? And there's no affliction present, you see? So the second group is lacking in the act of just all of a sudden you step on top of an insect, right? The deed is there, and the final step is there. But number two, the three aspects of the mind are completely not present. So that means the karma of killing that insect that, you know, on your shoes, is not as heavy as killing an insect with an intention. You see that? Or an animal. Yeah? So that means that, yeah, from that point of view, you can see that the act either is more heavy or less heavy. Right? So that's also true for positive things. So if you do something positive, which is by itself not easy in general, then also you have to make sure that all those factors are complete to make it a complete positive deed. So that's why we spend so much time always on our motivation, right? So with a positive deed, of course, like for example, let's say the act of giving, you know, in India, I'm quite easy to relate to beggars, and certain beggars, after some time, you generate a nice kind of relationship with. In Dharamsala, you see them every year, the same beggars, so you know them and they know you, and then you start to give, and then they understand, and yeah, so then it's an uncommon kind of relationship. Then when I was here in the UK, then most people who ask for money, they onto drugs or something, and it's always kind of, what do I do? You know, it's kind of. But then once I didn't give, and then I thought, yeah, they use for drugs, and then I was in Leeds and waiting on the rail station, and then there was one person who was so cold, it was raining. He said, "Oh, please give me tea." So I gave him a tea. You know, so that means that, yeah, you have to see sometimes, you know, the act, but then also make sure there's an object. So the act of giving is there's a need or something like that for act of giving, right? So then it's the subject or the object or the basis, I said, right? So then there's the motivation. Then of course it's good to have the more superior motivation. Like you can think, oh, by giving this cup of tea to this person, may I be able to give the nectar, not of tea, but the nectar of these kind of teachings that bring ultimate happiness to all sentient beings, you know, by giving this act. The motivation, you know, yeah. And then the affliction is mostly not present, although there's always the ignorance of grasping at true existence. It's always present. So that's for those who study more. I add that, otherwise then they're missing out on new information. So that means that for a positive act, though there's no affliction, like anger or attachment, yeah, you try to give with a good intention, for example, but there's always this grasping at seeing yourself, the object you give, and the person you give towards to, and the act, you see them all existing from their own side, inner handling. So that means it's still a good deed, but a contaminated good deed, because it's based on this ignorance of grasping at true existence. So it's still a cause for samsara, but for good things in samsara, right? So most of the time, the good things we do is in relation with this point. Yeah. So that's those three. So the intention, wish, the motivation to give, then the discriminating factor, you know the person is in need and you help. One of my own teachers, Khyentse Rinpoche, Lobsang Delek, who was the abbot of Gyume as well as the abbot of Sera Je, and many other monasteries, amazing. He was the father. When we went into classes, he had hundreds of students, but he knew exactly if a person was sick or where a person was in the text memorization. He always checked, oh, how is this person doing that? It was like the father. It was amazing, mind-boggling. So when he was very low-key, kind of easygoing personality. He was abbot of Gyume and abbot of Sera Je, which is in the hierarchic system, is one of the top positions, right? Yeah, but he was never like that. He just was going in the rickshaw all by himself, no attendance. You know, he was kind of very low-key kind of personality. So we went to this local village, Kushalnagar, which is our local town. And there was this beggar on the street. And this beggar on the street said, oh, I'm very hungry and I need a meal, you know, so please. And then he said, okay. And he took him to the restaurant and gave him a meal. Then the meal was finished. And then the beggar said, actually, I also need a chai. Like chai is an Indian cup of tea with nice, you know, I'm still attached to Indian chai. If you're attached to Indian chai and you drink British tea with a little bit of milk, it's different. Yeah. So the Indian chai, then he said, I need chai. So my teacher gave him chai, you know. So then teacher thought, okay, that's time, I have to go now, you know. And then he said, I need a beddy. Beddy is the kind of the little cigarette, you know. So then teacher said, yeah, that's not good for you. You know? So he didn't give the cigarette, you see. So that means you have to be skillful and depends on, if you have all these factors complete, you know, then it becomes an incredible kind of good karma. Or if you see Lama Zopa Rinpoche, when he goes to an hotel room, when he travels a lot, then the room is filled with pictures, and then before he pushes on the light, he makes a prayer. Then he pushes on the light and again makes a prayer. You know, like, by giving this light, may I eliminate the ignorance of all sentient beings. You see? So that means that if we use our mind properly, though we have an ordinary life, every act we do, washing your clothes in the washing machine, many times I explained you how to do the washing of purification, right? With the different programs, you can just make prayer. It looks stupid, but actually it's incredible mind training. Whatever you do in daily life, vacuuming your room, think with cleaning the dust and clean the ignorance of all sentient beings. If you have to do that anyway, then you might as well put it into practice. You know? So that means it all has to do with these factors being complete or not. You know, it's the mind, right? The mind produces every moment of consciousness. There is mental activity, and every moment of mental activity produces results. We cannot escape the law of cause and effect. So if you're a little bit clever and use things in daily life activities, then it's an incredible opportunity. Yeah? So that means if all those factors are complete, the karma is more heavy, right? Which produce a more solid kind of result than when one or two factors are missing. Yeah? You got it? That's what we have to get into you today. You know? And then not only that, but also we talked about, did we talk about throwing karma or propelling karma before? I forgot. So not in this course, no. So that means that another thing I have to touch upon, because it's related with these aspects we just discussed. If karma is very heavy, either positive or negative, right? If either things are positive or negative, but all those factors are complete, it has the potential to throw you in a particular rebirth. Yeah? For example, the act of giving, you know, if it's complete and the person is really in need and you help out, yeah, then it produces an act of giving that can, you know, propel you in a good rebirth. Or the practice of morality. We abandon non-virtue, right? We abandon these kind of 10 non-virtues. And by the power of abandoning the 10, we practice 10 virtues, right? If you don't act in killing, you avoid killing, which is virtue. Yeah. So if you don't steal, you avoid stealing, which is virtue, right? Yeah. So that's the practice of morality. Yeah. So that means that if you engage in that and the factors are all complete, it can propel you or throw you in another rebirth. For example, we talked about precious human rebirth, right? Right? So what are the 18 points of the precious human rebirth? Yeah. Where is it? On the paper somewhere. Yeah. So, yeah, so we talked about that. So that means to get all those 18 points, why are we so fortunate? We have to create courses for that, right? So what is the main cause for precious human rebirth? Yeah, it's slightly different from people sitting here, because now you're a bit more safe in your own room, but I can see you thinking. What is the main cause for precious human rebirth is 1, 2, 3, morality, right? Morality is one of the main causes for precious human rebirth, you know? So that means if you practice morality, and you practice morality with all these 4 factors complete, it has the power to put you in a precious human rebirth, because one life is probably not enough for us. We will not be able to to achieve enlightenment in this life, right? So we probably have to go a few more lifetimes. Yeah? So that means we need a good precision rebirth, so we have to practice morality. And as I said before, looks like a sales talk on morality, but it's the basis of the Buddhist teaching, right? And we saw with the 3 Heine trainings is the first step, is get the things ready to go, meaning don't act in negative deeds. Avoid those 10 non-virtues. So, so that's the act of morality. So if you practice morality with those factors complete, the basis, intention, the deeds, and the completion, and then on top of that you rejoice, what we just talked about, rejoice and make a prayer, or dedication. So dedication is a prayer, but not every prayer is dedication. It's kind of a debate. Meaning that if you say, oh, may I obtain a precious rebirth, that's a prayer, right? Or may I achieve happiness, that's a prayer. We pray all the time. We don't realize. We all pray all the time. We pray for objects we like to achieve, or status we like to achieve. It's like a prayer, a wish, right? I like to become like this. It's not like a formal kind of put your hands together, but it's kind of a prayer. So there's kind of a wish to obtain a certain thing in the future, right? So a dedication is a little bit step further, because a dedication says, by the power of this virtue that I practice, through practicing morality, may I achieve a precious rebirth. That's a prayer. And also a dedication. Because it dedicates a certain amount of root of virtue to a good deed in the future, or a result. So that means that a precious human rebirth has one main cause and corporate kind of conditions to make it happen. So the main cause is practice morality, right? So if you practice morality, you have all the 4 factors complete, as we just discussed, it will propel you in a future rebirth as a human being, having these kind of 18 points that are conducive for spiritual practice, That's throwing karma or propelling karma. Those who did 12 links, did we talk about 12 links? Some people, so if you talk about the 12 links, just to relate back to that, then there's a link, of ignorance, first one. Second link is the link of the karmic act, right? And that stops, and that leaves a potential in the continuity of consciousness, right? So that means that is the throwing karma puts in potential in your mind at that time of the 3rd link, right? Then at the time of that, it gets activated by graving and grasping, and then becomes a link of becoming, you see? So that throwing karma of practicing morality, with all those 4 factors complete, that leaves imprint in your mind. That's the throwing karma. It has a potential to throw you in a good rebirth. Then at the time of that gets activated, right? That potential, depending on the different states of mind we have at the time of that. And then it becomes establishing karma. Those who are study the 12 links, they can relate back to that. And then it produces a bardo being, and after the bardo being, a rebirth. So that means if all the factors are complete, then it can throw you in a state like that. This is also true for negative karma. If you engage in killing, and all the factors are complete, and the killing is a bit nasty and everything, then it has the potential to throw you in a lower state of rebirth. Right? We didn't talk about that normally. Normally you talk about lower rebirths before you talk about karma, but it's Discovering Buddhism, so it's not a traditional presentation, so you have to be careful, and we talk about it later. But do you think it's possible to be born as a dog or a cat? You think?
Yes.
Yeah. Or,
yes.
Yeah, but some people say yes, some people say no, some people say I don't know. You examine. But you have to check, So it means that they have also consciousness, and their consciousness, as we just talked about, is not completely different from ours. Very similar things, Now we human don't think we are so superior because we have a human brain at the moment, you know, but when that stops, then all kind of possibilities. Same if you dream, it's kind of, all kind of things come to mind. So anyway, so if you do the act of killing, then it's possible to throw you, you know, same 12 links, you commit the act of kasa. Killing, yeah, it has this throwing karma, potentially in your mind, gets activated at the time of death, and propels you in lower states of rebirth. Yeah, so that's a possibility. So that we call, that's a term to remember, and you have to write down. Throwing karma, or sometimes you will find a text that translates the same term as propelling karma, because it propels you in a rebirth. Yeah, throwing karma, propelling karma. Yeah. There's probably a few other terms, but I forgot. Yeah. So that's one kind of karma. There's a lot of lists today, right? You okay still? Yeah. Yeah. So that's one aspect. So then what happened? What happens if a karma is not that complete? You know, like killing an insect or insects without an intention. And you don't purify. It doesn't have the power to throw you in a rebirth. So where does that karma go? How do you ripen? How does karma ripen like that? So then we say another karma is called completion karma, or karma of experience. Yeah, or creates the environment. Yeah, so that means that lesser heavier karmas, either positive or negative, they create kind of corporate conditions, right? Oops, I'm just looking at the time. Time goes so fast. Yeah, so that means that you can be born in the highest, and that's the last thing I talk, and then we do meditation and discussion, or question answer. Anyway, you have a whole afternoon not whole afternoon, but you have afternoon time to discuss, so we can still spend some time on questions. Yeah. Anyway, we do a little bit today as well, before the break. So, yeah, I talked about two things, throwing karma and completing karma. Let's keep those two terms. Throwing karma and completing karma. Throwing karma means all the four factors as basis, intention, deed, final step are complete. It has the power to throw you in a rebirth, either positive or negative, right? So then one or two factors are missing. It doesn't become throwing karma, but it becomes kind of completing karma. Yeah, yeah. I'll give you an example. A human being is considered as positive result, yeah, of a positive act of throwing karma, right? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah. So, but there are human beings in a lot of poverty, like in certain countries in Africa, for example, right? So that means there's positive throwing karma, but some negative completing karma ripening because of lack of food or water or other things in life. Yeah, you see? So that's many aspects. There's a lot of causes and conditions involved, right? So that means that the beings were born in those states, good throwing karma, but negative completion karma. Or you're born as a human being and you're sick all the time. You know, some people it's like that. Yeah, you see? So there's positive throwing karma, negative completion karma. Yeah? Then dogs and cats. Generally speaking, if you're born as a dog or a cat, generally speaking, especially on the streets in India somewhere, is negative throwing karma, right? Yeah. But if you're born as a pet in the West, then even I've heard some take the pet to the psychologist or something. so that means the dogs and cats in the West, they're better off than human beings in Africa sometimes. You see? So that means that the throwing karma is generally speaking negative, but the completion karma is positive. You see that? Or if you're born as a street dog in India and without food, and you know, a bus almost drives over you, and it's kind of negative throwing karma and negative completion karma. You see? Yeah, you see that? So there's different combinations possible. A human being with a reasonably good, healthy life is good throwing karma and good completion karma, right? A human being with a lot of suffering or sickness is good throwing karma, but negative completion karma. a dog or cat born in a good family and been fed, like Doja, our cat here, is is a negative throwing karma, but good completion karma, because he just has to walk on the other side of the door and ask for attention, and he gets something. Yeah, so it's good. It's negative throwing karma, but good completion karma. Yeah. You see, there's a few possibilities are there. Yeah, you see that? So you see that distinction. That's enough information for today, I think. So you have so much material to discuss. There's a few questions you'll be given, but you can also discuss these things, you know? Yeah. In the discussion rooms of Zoom. Yeah. There's nothing on the wall, it's just a screen. Yeah, so that's we do in the afternoon. So then what is left for this morning is still a meditation, and there's time for a few questions. So I was thinking we're going to do a short meditation on the 4 principal points of karma, right? That karma is definite, it has the power to increase, that karma not created will not be experienced, and karma, while being created, the result will come. Yeah, so that until that time, karma still has potential to grow, to produce a result, so to say. So I'm thinking to do contemplation on those 4 points. So how do we do contemplation? First, we do a little bit of concentration meditation. As we know, there's 2 types of meditation, concentration and analytical meditation, right? So concentration, we talked already about the 2 mental factors, so alertness and mindfulness. I always talk about these 2 mental factors, very important to train. Yeah, so the object of concentration is the breath. Yeah, so every in-breath we count as 1, out-breath is 2. And then we count from 1 to 10 and then start over counting. Yeah, so while doing the counting of the breath, make sure you don't do anything else. Yeah, only the counting of the breath. Yeah, so that means you make a decision that the object of concentration is the count. And in order to generate concentration, you have to be... Meditation doesn't mean just to relax. Meditation needs effort. So that's why to generate concentration, you have to put some effort. You know? The counting of the breath and have those 2 mental factors. Then we do that for a minute or 2, and then we do the analytical meditation. Yeah, of Kasa, of these 4 points. Just to analyze. What does it mean, karma is definite? Is it true? Is it really true that something positive produces a positive result and something negative produces a negative result? Then you check from daily experience, you know, how a positive state of mind produces happiness, and a negative state of mind like anger produces suffering. Physical, verbal, and mental. Yeah? So you analyze. Yeah? So that's for the analytical meditation. Then for the point, first for the concentration meditation, try to sit. As we discussed many times, right? How to sit. Back straight, head slightly bent forward, that the crown of your head is one line with your spine. The mouth is just about to be closed, right? And the eyes, also the eyelids, is just almost close enough. You don't see anything, but it's not completely dark. That's how you close your eyes. Your hands, you just put your right hand on top of your left, not like this. You don't have to force, just in your lap. You know? You can see it on the screen, but relax, basically. But make sure the posture, that's the middle way, you know. Don't push, but also don't be too relaxed. Yeah, so that's why you have to have the middle way of sitting properly, but with effort. You know? Yeah, and then we're going to breathe as we do normally. We don't force it, but just be aware of the breathing process and count the breaths from 1 to 10, and then start over counting. Yeah, and then make sure whenever thoughts of the past or thought of the future comes up, you don't pay attention, but you go back to the counting of the breath. Yeah, so let's do that for about a minute or 2. Yeah, just get some concentration. So count every in-breath as 1, out-breath as 2, in-breath as 3, out-breath as 4, and count from 1 to 10 and start over counting. Yeah, so using 2 mental factors, as soon as your mind gets distracted, or you hear something outside, or you think about the past or the future, you know, you'll be aware of that, and with mindfulness you think, oh, I'm supposed to be counting the breath, so that's the only thing you're doing. So in mindfulness, you bring your mind back. So do that for about a minute or two. So then when your mind is settled down a bit, then we do the analytical meditation, and well, in the following way, by reflecting upon these 4 points. The first point, karma is definite. Is it really true that one particular seed will only produce a particular result? Like apple seeds will produce something like an apple tree and will never produce a banana tree. In a similar way, an affliction like anger produces disturbance of mind and activates negative things of body and speech. Yeah, the result is suffering for self and others. And a positive state of mind, like the wish to give something or love and kindness, actually generates positive results. Yeah, so try to analyze those 2 aspects of this first point. Yeah, that karma is definite from the point of view of the result is in accordance with the cause. You know? So try to analyze if that's really true or not. So we do that for about a minute or 2 to analyze that aspect. And then try to have a conclusion also here. Based on the reasoning, try to see that particular states of mind produce particular results and not the other way around. You know? So that's really true. That anger produces suffering, and constructive thoughts or positive states of mind like compassion, you know, actually produces positive results. Yeah, and then focus on that insight or that conclusion for about a minute. And then the next analytical aspect is we take the last 3 points together by seeing that negative karma, once created, has this potential to increase, right? And the result, that's the second point. And that the result will come, you know, if you don't purify it. So that's the third reason, the third kind of aspect of karma, right? So until you don't take away the potential, it can still produce the result when it meets the right conditions. So the power of increase, the power to produce a result, yeah? And we're responsible ourselves. It's not that we can ask somebody else to do it for us. You cannot experience the result of somebody else's karma or purify. Somebody else can purify for you. You have to do it yourself. So take those 3 points into account of the analytical meditation that's, to analyze those aspects of the power of increase, as well as the power of the potential for the results to be produced. It's just sitting there, just waiting for the right conditions to come up. And that we have to do it ourselves. So try to analyze those three aspects of karma in the next 1 or 2 minutes, and analyze why is it so. So try to see that for about a minute or two. So also here try to come to a conclusion that actually sees that, like a seed produces a whole tree with a lot of fruit. In a similar way, one intention or one act can produce a huge amount of big results in the future. Yeah. And also try to see, until we don't act, that result can be experienced or will be experienced if we don't destroy negative karma, by purification. So, and we cannot ask others to do that. We have to do it ourselves. So try to come to a conclusion. It's maybe time to do some purification practice, to prevent negative results from coming to ripening because of these aspects of the power of increase and the power of sitting there, the potential just sitting there, waiting for the conditions to come, as well as we have to do it ourselves. So come to that conclusion of the need of purification of negative karma we've done in the past, and then focus on that conclusion for about a minute. All right, then we can stop. Oops, yeah. So yeah, if you like homework for today, in the evening and tomorrow morning before we meet again, just try also to do a similar meditation, but then also go in a little bit more deeper. Take one point at a time. And now we did all 4 points, but try to take 1 point at a time. And also try to analyze the things we discussed with regard to 10 non-virtues, right? Why is killing negative for self and others? And how do we prove that a karmic action has a bigger potential for a result to come about if all those 4 factors are complete? Or if one of those are missing, why is the karma less heavy? Try to contemplate those things, try to analyze. Because we get the information, and then it's very important to analyze in this way. The Buddha said, don't accept my teachings, because I'm a famous person or people respect me. You have to analyze if it's true or not. So that's, for us, very important in the analytical meditation, as we just did. So we don't have enough time to do meditation, analytical meditation on each point. We go over, but that's why it's part of the homework. Homework is not something like too difficult. It's for the benefit of developing yourself, right? So it's kind of not a punishment or something. So that's why it's good to do those meditations, right, on a regular basis. Then the mind will move in a particular direction. Only attending the weekends of Discovering Buddhism, or later on when you do a basic program, Only attending the classes is not enough, right? It's just planting the seeds. And then we have to create the right conditions for the seeds to ripen. So we have to put some effort from our own side, right? So that's, yeah. So then, if there's any questions, let's say we go a few minutes over time, is that okay? Yeah? People hungry already or not? Not? No, okay. So then if people have a question, then how do we do that? Can we just ask people straight to put up their hands and then unmute them? Is that okay?
Yes, Geshe-la. If they can also raise their blue hand.
The blue one?
Beside their name.
Yeah. The blue
on their screen. Yeah.
People have blue hands.
Then we will cue them and unmute them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's more personal than when I read all the questions in the chat, and then I find it more difficult to think about things. Yeah. No blue hands today. Oh, there's a blue hand there. Yeah. Yeah.
So Marco, yeah, I'll unmute him.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. You also have to unmute yourself, maybe. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this teaching, Geshe-la. I was wondering, I can understand karma very well on a psychological level.
Yeah.
If I have a negative state of mind and that becomes a motivation for my actions.
Yeah.
Then I can see how that generates negative results.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it harder to understand, for example, actions without motivations, how that can continue to have an effect, especially in future lives. How is that carried? How is that passed on to future existences?
Yeah.
And also, it seems to me like an action, since we live in such a complex world, is like a drop of ink into the ocean. It gets diluted.
Mm-hmm.
How is that stays only with my
consciousness,
and how is that carried on in the future?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good question. I think you're not the only one who has this question. I think most people have the same kind of question, because when I explained to everybody that karma has many aspects, has a slightly hidden and a very hidden aspect, right? So the slightly hidden we can relate to because we can reason and prove it. Like with anger produces suffering. With those very hidden ones, it's very difficult to understand, because being reborn, to get a next, if you study the 12 links, for example, then you know that one act doesn't pervade to ripen in the next life. It's a very complex system since beginner's lifetime. So that's why it's very difficult to understand that aspect, because you have to have certain amount of clairvoyance, because logic by itself is not enough. It's a very, that's why it's called, it's a very hidden phenomena, So that's why many people find it very difficult to accept karma, because they don't understand this aspect. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? But to a certain extent, what I find beneficial, because I had this question many times, is kind of habituation patterns. It's easier to relate to, right? And being in situations where those habituations are being stimulated, like a criminal, for example, when he falls back to his old friends, he is in this kind of circumstances to also be killed himself if he acts in the act of killing. Yeah, because of the habituation inclinations to be born in a particular environment, or be in a particular environment in this case, where it's more dangerous. So that, to a certain extent, we can relate to that. Yeah, another thing to think about, but it's not exactly the same, but it gives us a kind of way to think about habituation patterns, because that's what it is, right? To a certain extent. Yeah? Another aspect is dreams. Yeah, things in the dreams reflects what happened to the day, the previous day, or so in that way we can also think how it can happen in a future lifetime of previous inclinations or deeds that have been done. Then sometimes states of mind come up, very negative states of mind you never saw before. Where does that come from? That's the question. Yeah, maybe not related with this life. Or say, tell you a little personal story. I keep it short, or not? Yeah. Before I became a Buddhist, a few of you know the story, but maybe a few not. Before I became a Buddhist, I had some girlfriends. I thought, okay, relationships okay, but no children. That was my view of the future. Too much hassle. Children, too much hassle. That was my view. Try to enjoy life as much as possible. So then I became a monk, and then I thought, okay, don't have to worry about it anymore. But then 18 years after becoming a monk, I became a father. But then my son was already 5 years on delivery. He was already 5 years old. So then I never want to be a father, right? Within 2 weeks, I felt like a father. And all the habits fathers normally have for children were present. I thought, where did that come from? Not from this life, for sure. You see? Yeah, so certain things in life we can say, oh, that comes from somewhere, but not this life, you see? So for me, same thing. I went to university, finished, did one research for the government in the Netherlands. Then I met the Buddhist teaching. One weekend, actually the first evening changed my whole life. Why? So that was not from this life, because in this life I never received any Buddhist teaching, you know? So that means there is something that is gets activated from something else in this life, right? With being a father or this kind of things, you know? So that maybe you can relate to a little bit, that there's something we don't know, but there's a correlation between similar. That's why I said a result in accordance with a similar cause. You see that? Yeah? So that's why we talk about a lot about a result in accordance with the cause. And that is in relation with this first point of karma. That karma is definite, right? So then how this act stops and leaves a potential in the mind or the stream of consciousness, there's a few things to think about from these examples, how that gets activated and how it's present all of a sudden. It's not random, right? So then maybe you can think about it a little bit. And then with, with criminals falling back to old habits in the same environment, and then because of the act of killing, there's a danger to be killed yourself. So in a similar way, in a future lifetime, based on those inclinations, you can fall in a particular place where there's a lot of war, if you act a lot of killing in this life. And then you can lose your life very early, or something like that. Yeah, something to think about. Yeah, but on individual basis, because it's a very complex system, also that we have to take into account. Yeah, if you have, same with the weather, there's so many variables, so it's very difficult to completely understand the system. Yeah, it's very complex. Okay, yeah.
Next one is Laura. Yeah.
Laura George also, he puts his physical hands, but
okay.
Yeah.
So my question, thank you for the start.
Yeah.
My question is this. So of the 4 important points, the third one is that you cannot experience the result of other people's karma, nor can you purify it, right?
Yeah, of somebody else's karma, yeah.
Yeah. So when we practice, when we started this, you asked us to surround ourselves with the idea of all sentient beings around us.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that has to do with the 4 factors of the karma.
Yeah.
So it's the motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But if we surround ourselves with all sentient beings, I think, we are receiving these blessings, and may they all receive these blessings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that can generate compassion, but can it not also increase ignorance?
Increase ignorance?
Yeah, because we are surrounding ourselves with sentient beings.
Yeah. So?
I don't know. I mean, I think I am, like my friend Jill says that I am a nihilist because, well, maybe I'll have to talk to you about it, but because if we're all interconnected, then there's no way that anyone, never mind, sorry. Yeah, but I think does it not make ignorance even stronger?
No, because like we cannot take away the suffering of others, right? Generally speaking, yeah, we can purify their negative deeds, but by generating compassion, by focusing upon their suffering, we can develop a way to become a Buddha, right? And then having, even on the path to becoming a Buddha, we can help those sentient beings to eliminate the suffering, right? So that removes ignorance, because we see those sentient beings are suffering. We know why they are suffering, because of afflictions, and that's caused and rooted in ignorance. And we see there's a possibility of change. And that's how the Buddha said, you know, I cannot take away your suffering. I cannot purify your sins, but I can show you how to do it, right? So in that way, and then we think, oh, there's already so many Buddhas, but we have an uncommon karmic connection with countless sentient beings all the Buddhas don't have a connection with, as we have, you know? So that there's a lot of sentient beings we can be of more benefit when we become a Buddha than when what they can do already being a Buddha, you know, or the Buddhas, right? So that gives a kind of responsibility feeling that if we develop ourselves in the particular direction, we cannot be of real help or benefit to show them the path, you see? So that's possible. And that removes ignorance, right? Remare, we say in Tibetan. Yes or no?
Yes.
Re, you say re.
Re.
Lare. Yeah.
Lare.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically, yeah, we have to be realistic. We cannot take away suffering and we cannot purify others, but at least we can help others to do it, right? Or just talk nicely, be showing a good example and showing a good, you know, I see my own mother, I mean, she never really called herself a Buddhist, but because her son, you know, is dressed up like this and you know, but I always never really talked about Buddhism much, only when they ask questions, you know, and just show an easygoing kind of example and try to be kind, and then slowly interest comes. And now she read during the lockdown a whole Lama text. It's kind of mind-boggling. And she even was meeting up with a friend who I also met. We come to the same Buddhist center. I said, oh, you live in the same town. Why don't you meet up? And now they had discussions on emptiness. Can you believe it? 2 meters distance, of course, social distancing. Very interesting, yeah. So in that way, even though we don't act as a teacher or do activities of the bodhisattvas, we still can help out, right? Yeah, does it help? Yeah. Yeah.
Geshe-la, next one is Radek.
Radek is on the other side. I mean, of course, on the other side, but
He's a bit shy.
Radek, where's Radek? I didn't see Radek for a long time.
Still alive. Hello.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Hi.
Hi.
I thought I want to give others space, but
Yeah.
okay, since I'm here. Hi, Geshe, thank you so much. Anyway, good to see you.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question on how the. Maybe if you could explain, but you might also go to that tomorrow, about the purification, and but maybe like from scientific kind of understanding how for example the 4 opposite powers can purify or help us change negative behaviors. You know what I mean? But less maybe Buddhist kind of understanding, because I know you have also the background in that. In scientific kind of studying, so
so I was planning to do it actually tomorrow because
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So because we're going to talk about the possibility of purifying, and we talked about another course maybe, but also what actually has been purified and what not, and why. You know, that's very important. That's very scientific. It's very scientific because how some things cannot, same as an antidote, can only, for example, practicing patience can never be an antidote to strong desire, right? While contentment can be an antidote to strong desire, but not to getting angry, right? So every state of mind needs its own kind of uncommon antidote, right? So in a similar way, we're going to talk about tomorrow how to purify, because you need something that is opposing something negative in a correct way. Yeah, so we talk about tomorrow, I promise. Yeah. No, thank you. Then there was a question from George and Maya.
Yeah, from George.
Yeah, I have to just go to the pages. Where is George?
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. I hear
Yeah.
you. And now I see you. Yeah.
This is again about purification, and I'm always about fairy tales
Okay. Yeah.
because I like them. There is often this fairy tale when people are looking for a fountain where they can go and have a bath and then become young again. So meaning probably also become pure again.
So be
And I
born,
wonder whether the
born and young again. You said?
I said, when they go in and have a bath in a fountain or a source, they become young again. That's one. That's a story that always comes in the fairy tale.
Ali, become
And
younger. Go back in time.
Yeah, yeah. They become just. That's the dream to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or look younger.
No, they become young again.
Okay.
They don't suffer anymore somehow. And I wonder whether we could say there is kind of a relation to emptiness with that. Could that be that we say emptiness is like that fountain?
Is it a bit more than that? Listen, we have this story. If you're born in one of the Pure Lands, there's a student of Vajrayana, for example. You can take your own, this body you have now, you know. Of course, you have to do some kind of practices. you can take, or Vajrayana comes and take you, and then you take the aspect of being 16 years old. Yeah, but that needs not one weekend to explain. It needs a few more weekends, yeah, because it has to do with purification and contaminated air that's being transformed in non-contaminated ones, and yeah, there's some more things to say to that, yeah. But there are stories like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But sometimes it looks like people getting younger, but yeah, it's just appearance. It can also happen. When I went to Maratika, you know, this place in eastern Tibet, to do retreats, and it's a place for long life, actually. It's a very famous place for long life. Many lamas of the past did the long life practices for Holiness Lama and other masters. Yeah? So when I came back to Kopan, just the day before I came here, so then some people say, "Oh, you look younger all of a sudden." So some people say if you go to Maratika, you look younger, but it's not reality because my body became like 3 weeks older, right? Yeah, and especially the trip with the jeep over the mountains was not really something that made me younger, to be honest. Yeah. Then okay. Then 2 more questions. Maya has one, and then Lucia has one. Yeah. Maya first. She put up her physical hand.
Yeah, well, also because I don't have the blue one, so I have I did this at the end.
Yeah.
So I have a question regarding to for meditation, right? When we are meditating about emptiness, so we take the emptiness of the self, right? Me as a body. How am I empty? But so I was wondering, because we said that the more subtle meditation on emptiness is understanding that, you know, try to understand that it's about the karma, the subtle things. So can we, like, for instance, take I don't know, one of the aspect of the very, very subtle karma and then meditate on this, like
to prove emptiness.
I don't know how to try to take it as an emptiness meditation. I mean, because I did, anyway, you understood.
Yeah, so that means that to prove emptiness, you can prove emptiness by the power of interdependence, right? Yeah, so even subtle aspects of karma is in the nature of cause and effect relationships. Because of that interdependence of cause and relationships, nothing can exist from its own side, right? So but the contemplation about karma is still a conventional reality.
Yes.
Yeah? But is a subtle conventional reality to prove that nothing exists from its own side. Yes, one of the reasons Nothing exists from its own side because everything is a nature of interdependence, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we can use it as a reasoning. That can be perfectly done. But then we're still talking about this second level of reality, right? We have the manifest, slightly hidden. Because the very hidden aspect of karma can only be understood by a fully enlightened being. So then,
Yes.
you know, to understand that first, you have to realize emptiness, then directly, then you go on the path, and then become Buddha eventually, and then only understand the most subtle aspects.
Yes, but I was just wondering regarding to meditations that you can do. For instance, because if when you're talking about emptiness, you can do a meditation about emptiness of the self through, you know, scanning the body. How do I exist? Where do I exist? And so on.
Search for
so,
the concrete
yeah.
to be able to find it.
Yes. So then I was wondering if we can, you know, do another part that we are meditating, you know, because this is like the emptiness of the self, not the emptiness of phenomena.
Yeah.
Right? So can we do, for instance, a meditation about the emptiness of phenomena through analyzing things, I don't know, maybe that happened to us or so on, and try to see how, you know, in that regard. So we can build up a meditation in that as well.
Can do. Yeah, because last week you were there also, I think, no? Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we talked about disintegratedness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you contemplate this aspect of karma, right, it's incredible meditation on emptiness. Or it's not a meditation on emptiness, but it helps us to understand emptiness.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing concrete to fall back upon, like a cell. Everything is just momentary disintegrating, it produces results and come and go, right? So in that regard, it can be a very powerful meditation, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing regarding to the purification, that we said that you can also, if you have a, you know, for instance, you want to help your parents, for instance, Vajrayana, you can bring them up in the, so you cannot take the karma of them, you cannot, you know, release them from their karma, but you can support them in that regard, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even prayers, you know, prayers or meditations with positive intentions for people have effect. You know,
Yeah.
research, when I had a lot of doubts, I read this research of Christian nuns praying for mothers, you know, who have to deliver babies in Korea, and there's kind of control group, very scientific setup. It's interesting. There's a correlation between people who pray or have positive thoughts to a particular being, and there's less complications at time of birth. So if that's the case over far distance, and then it's even more the case for those close to you because of the karmic connection, right? Like parents, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's some more, but never. Thank you so much.
So there one more, and then we have to stop because people are very hungry.
Lucia?
Yeah. Hi. So, first of all, thank you. Lovely lecture. And then, can you hear me okay? Or?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
So, I'm not really sure how to phrase this.
Yeah.
So, the reason why we study karma is the best way is to learn how to protect our karma. And the only way to efficiently learn how to protect our karma so that we can help others and have a positive rebirth is through bodhicitta practice. So what I'm trying to say is all of this intellectual stuff is very interesting.
Yeah.
But how long does it take before you can take the intellectual stuff and produce it into action? So, for example, where I live, I'm very close to the inner city. And I walk with people that are challenged. You know, they have many challenges in their lives. So in that way, I realized I didn't even know that I was doing bodhicitta practice, but just by walking with people who have many challenges in life, I began to expand my own, bodhicitta life condition. And so in that way, I think I mitigated or lessened my karma. And so what I'm trying to say is that the intellectual stuff, I had an intuitive sense for it, but it wasn't until I actually began living my life that everything really made sense. Does that? I'm not sure if that's a question or am I looking at things incorrectly?
It's true. We first get the knowledge, right? And then after having received the knowledge, we contemplate. And then while contemplating it, it still takes a lot of time to make it natural, right? To behave exactly accordance with what we study. So that's a matter of time. Yeah. For example, a person on the paths, as we say, a person who has generated bodhicitta, whatever that person does, he or she, everything will be a cause for enlightenment because of this bodhicitta motivation. That doesn't mean they can solve all the problems in the world, but at least on a local level, they can be an incredible benefit for self and others. You know, so it takes time to change the mind. Takes time to practice patience. Takes time, but it's possible, right? So the more we habituate our mind to that pattern, it becomes natural, right? And then all our physical and verbal acts will be according with that intention. Yeah. So that's a matter of time. Yeah. So yeah, if not in a few years, then you know, a few more years, like that, right? But at least we go into a direction instead of just going back to old habits and making similar mistakes again and again, right? I think we have to stop because people must be very hungry, and there's a discussion session also. And don't worry, because after discussion we still meet again. So if you have questions, then write them down, or yeah, you probably won't forget. And then, is that okay? Yeah, okay. And because you have to have your lunch, because we already 23 minutes over time. So thank you very much for this morning Zoom experience again. And then, yeah, I hope you enjoy your discussions, and Jackie will kindly guide you in that, dividing the people in different groups. And then I see you again around 3:15, right? According to the schedule.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will come back for the discussion group with our Geshe-la
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock. Yeah.
2:30 it says.
2:30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in an hour and 10 minutes, about 10 minutes time.
Yeah.
Please do not log out, and because we're gonna break everyone into the discussion room, so it's prepared when you come back in after lunch. So
Don't
please, yeah, just you can turn off your camera and yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy your lunch. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's it, Jackie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and see you yeah, later today, 3:15. Okay, enjoy your discussion. Thank you very much. And then a quick dedication, just for the benefit of all sentient beings. All sentient beings quickly achieve a state of enlightenment. Yeah, just keep it short. Janjo Senjo Rinpoche Magye Pana Gigej Keba Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gonda Baba Jo, and realize emptiness. Tony Tawa Rinpoche Magye Pana Gigej Keba Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gonda Baba Jo, and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yewa Gunda Yanda Lama Damaja Dan Belan Saran Langi Yunda Razan Doje Changi Gobanyo To Show. Okay, thank you very much. See you soon. Ciao.